for Monday, November 8th to order. The first item of business is a joint meeting with the Community Services Advisory Board. I'd like to call on Chair Yamamoto and the CSAB members for their presentation.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Anderson, Deputy Mayor Whalen, council members. So I just took a moment to get the login all set up. Hi, I am Senator Yamamoto, speaking to you in my capacity as chair of the Community Services Advisory Board. Just wanted to go over a couple things tonight, just summarizing the work plan for 2021, and then talking about our recommendation for allocation of ARPA funds. So for 2021, we're overseeing the human services contracts, making recommendations for 2022. So as I discussed last time, I presented for council, all of the organizations receiving contracts in 2021 were in compliance, except for Making a Difference Foundation and Asia Pacific Cultural Center, both of which just had not completed their annual reports. We now have their metrics in and they are also in compliance. So the board is recommending keeping all contracts from 2021 to continue as they are existing into 2022. Are there any questions about that before I move on?
No.
Questions from council?
None of that.
No? Please
Okay,
proceed.
thank you. All right, the next item was our recommendation for ARPA allocation. Having discussed with Lakewood's Promise Board, we have identified or agreed that areas of focus are workforce development and youth mental health. So we're recommending that half of the money go to the career team project from Workforce Central, and the other half to Clover Park School District. The materials provided in your packet reference a school counselor. We just heard back from the school district today that there's some changes to exactly the title and responsibilities of that position, just recognizing that there are a lot of mental health resources that already exist in the county. And so the proposition from the district is to hire a youth wellness coordinator who will coordinate and facilitate kind of identifying those resources and bring them into the schools. So if the council can contribute $35,000 a year for the next 2 years, the school district will match that. Are there any questions there?
Questions on that from council? Mr. Brandstetter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I do appreciate and understand the recommendations. I just on the question on the ARPA recommendation, and you mentioned that it talked about it being for 2 years, and what we as a council did is that we identified money for 2022 and 2023. And unlike the rest of the allocation, which is 2022 is the second year of a 2-year process to identify them, that and all those contracts will end at the end of 2022, and there'll be a new process to do that. Is it the committee's thought that the ARPA dollars in 2022 will actually result in 2-year contracts?
Thank you. It's a good question. My understanding is that the scope of our recommendation was just for, as I understand it, 2022 and 23 that the council is allocating of ARPA funds. But I'll defer to Brian there, and if there are any other board members on the call right now.
Yeah, if the council were to approve that allocation, the actual contract we write would just be for 1 year. But with the, and then that second year recommendation would be included in next year's report, but under the assumption that we would likely consider the same investment, but it would be a 1 year contract starting with.
So would that mean that next year, and I'll use the school district counselor as a example, there would be the $35,000 from ARPA funds for 2023, but that if you wanted to consider a 23-24 award, then the second year would come out of the whatever 1% amounts to for a year from now. That may or may not be an increase above what's there now. There may be that room, but that would be the possible way that would play out.
Yes, knowing that we will stay flexible with all those dynamics, that would be our assumption.
All right, well, thank you.
Ms. Yamamoto?
See, just that's all for me.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Anything else from the committee? See, we have Mr. Lackady on board.
Not here.
All right. Well, thanks again for your yeoman service on that committee. I know you folks take it very seriously and do a lot of due diligence. And so it's unusual, but we've called you into overtime here for COVID. And thanks for your extra efforts.
Of course. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thanks. So now we'll move to a review of the 2022 Human Service Funding recommendations. And this is for Mr. Humphreys.
Mayor Anderson, it appears that Mr. Humphreys has departed the meeting. I will try to get him back here on the line, but he did log off. I'm not sure if you'd like to move to
Hit the wrong button. So while we're looking for him, if Ms. Krauss is available, we can move on to the 2022 lodging tax funding allocations.
Yeah, I think the funding recommendations were those provided by Sarah for 2022, but I could be wrong. But I think she provided the recommendations that Mr. Humphreys would echo.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, that was my understanding as well. The reason Mr. Humphreys left was because that item had already been discussed as part of the CSAB discussion.
Okay.
But certainly, Mayor and Council, if you'd like to
I
have
thought maybe there was something beyond that. So
no,
all right.
there's not, Mayor. But would you like us to bring him back for you, or
no need. If
okay.
I thought there was some other detail.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor.
So we'll move to a review of the 2022 lodging tax funding allocations with Ms. Krauss.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Before you is the LTAX recommended allocation. The total estimated funds available for the 2022 grant, including the McGavick Center allocation, is $1,847,243. On August 2nd, the city solicited requests totaling $839,000, and that is made up of 18 proposals totaling $737,150, plus the $101,850 for the city's commitment for the McGavick Center construction. On September 13th, the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee was provided the completed applications for review. On September 23rd, the committee met all day to hear presentations by each of the applicants. The members of the committee carefully considered each request based on available funds, past performance, ability to attract tourism, particularly from the outside the 50-mile radius, and as well as the strength of the applications. The lodging tax recommended allocating a total of $780,500, and that includes the McGavick Center commitment. But there were two exceptions. Rise Against Racism requested $28,500, but was awarded $0 by the committee. The organization emailed stating that there would be no presentation to the LTAC and realized that it would diminish their chances of their application. The Lodging Tax Committee reviewed the application and noted missing requirements such as the balance sheet, organizational budget, and E-Verify acknowledgement. The Lodging Tax Committee also noted the absence of a presenter to discuss the project and answer questions about the event. The City of Lakewood Love Lakewood Festival Series requested $60,000 but received $30,000. The Lodging Tax Committee noted that this is a startup project and deliberated on the size of the request in that context. The members also talked about what measures they would be using to estimate attendance. The Lodging Tax members pointed out that they would likely supplement through more sponsorships if they had not received the full allocation. So the total amount that the Lodging Tax Committee is recommending is $780,500, and that's $678,650 awarded to the 17 applicants and the $101,850 to the McGavick Center commitments. The next step is for the City Council to consider approval of the Lodging Tax recommended grant allocation at the November 15th council meeting. And that concludes my presentation.
Questions from Ms. Krauss, Mr. Whalen.
Thanks, Todd. I had a question, and it's probably because I went to school to be a lawyer and not a mathematician, so it's a math question for me. When I look at page 10 of our packet and I look at the total estimated funding available for the 2022 grant awards, it basically shows a net of 1.745, right?
Yes.
And that's broken down into the two buckets. And so when I go over and look at the recommendations, and we got a total of what, 780,000?
Yes. So
what happens to the difference, roughly almost 900 some odd thousand dollars?
okay, so that you're correct. The total that is available is the $1,847,243, and that is based on the estimated available for the 4% unrestricted of $1,120,257 and the 3% restricted of $726,986. Keep in mind that the 4% restricted could also, unrestricted, could be used for the restricted, so for capital purposes, but not vice versa. So after the recommended awards totaling $780,500, there would be a remaining estimated balance of $1,066,743. All of that could be used for capital, and $442,000 could be used for tourism.
Okay, and my next question then is, I appreciate that. Is that just monies estimated for 2022 and doesn't include any carryover on capital that was been unused from the COVID year of 2021?
Yes, that is correct. That's correct. And it's not just the capital dollars. Those capital dollars, there was about $143,000 that was carried over for the gateways. It would be more of those tourism dollars. We don't have an estimate at this time, but if there are some cancellation of events, that would just go back into the pot available for 2023 allocations.
Okay, but as we sit here today, based on this recommendation, we at least have a carryover potential pot of $1 million going into 2023.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I just noticed, Chairman of the committee, that while there had been a formal practice in the past of actually reserving something for a major project, that practice is not indelibly etched in the procedures of the committee, although it was discussed that this would allow $1 million plus any unused funds to be carried over, potentially to be used for a major project in the future. Any other questions from Ms. Krauss? Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think you're in all likelihood still up because we're moving to the 2022 fee schedule amendments.
So as you recall, City Council, on an annual basis, the proposed fee schedule for the upcoming year is presented to the City Council for consideration and approval. The proposed 2022 fee schedule includes two changes. The first change is for the hearing examiner deposit of $1,000, changed to $2,500 for plat alterations. This $2,500 fee is then now consistent with all other hearing examiner deposits. The second change is for animal control licensing fees. This item was presented to the City Council in October 2020 as part of the review of the new Humane Society contract. Based on the 2020 activity, the change in fees could generate approximately $18,000 more per year, which would help offset the increased cost of the Humane Society contract, which is currently estimated at $150,534 in 2021, and in 2022, $161,824. The net revenue in 2020 was $38,909, and with the fee change based on 2020 activity would increase to $58,856. The next step is for the City Council to consider approval of the proposed fee schedule at its November 15th City Council meeting. And that concludes my presentation.
Questions for Ms. Krauss regarding the fee schedule? Mr. Brandstetter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Ms. Krauss, I had a couple questions. First of all, we just heard several weeks ago that we launched using PALs as a permitting tool, and that the fees for permits are related to or intended to be related to costs. And in that PAL was intended to reduce costs, how is that going to impact or be integrated into the calculations about what the fees for certain permits should be? If not this year, then a year from now, when we are looking at doing that, is that something that's going to be studied?
So first off, I just want to say that with implementation of new systems, it does not necessarily save time initially. There will be a curve that we'd have to go past in order to get through the training and all of that. And sometimes technology at the beginning takes more resources. If it is determined that the PAL system actually saves us time and effort, thus reducing the cost, then that would be something that would go into the next fee schedule for 2023. I think it would still be too soon in 2022 to determine if there are indeed savings due to the new system.
Okay. And then a couple of weeks ago, when we discussed and asked us whether some level of effort is required in the issuance of a tree removal permit, if that would justify having a fee greater than zero. What we're told is that, yeah, probably the cost is greater than zero, but that in order to put it in the fee schedule, there need to be some work to determine what processing a permit of that sort costs. I'm not expecting that to take a year. I'm expecting it to take some number of weeks. So if we approve the fee schedule for 2022 on November 15th, it is doable to come back and amend it once we have a picture of what the costs associated with a tree removal permit and the associated inspections and things. Would that be, this is not something we can only do once a year.
That is correct, Councilmember Brandstetter. We have done that in the past where we've taken things in between. So as soon as a full analysis is completed and we have the information that we need, including cost comparisons with other cities perhaps, then that is something that we would bring back to the city council, and it doesn't have to wait until November 2022 to make that happen. It could be, as early as next year, if you like, the beginning of next year, if that's something that we can complete on time with the full analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Krauss regarding the fee schedule? Then we'll move to a review of the 2021 accounts receivable write-offs. Back to you, Ms. Krauss.
Okay, so consistent with what we have been doing for the past 8 years or so, we're bringing back to the city council items that require city council approval in order to write them up, in order to true up our books. The first one is for Elizabeth Gomez, and that's just over $13,000. It is for subrogation for city property damaged in 2018. And this occurred at the Interlochen and Lake Steilacoom Drive Bridge. So we went through the process with the collection notification and then collections, and were unsuccessful in collecting payment. The second one is for an NSF fee in the amount of $1,251. And this was for the purchase of scrap metal from our police department from their firing range, so the shell casings. And again, following the same process for notification, requesting payment, and turning over to collections, we've been unsuccessful in collecting these fees. So that concludes my presentation. This is also going to the November 15th City Council meeting for review and approval.
Any questions for Ms. Krauss regarding write-offs? Thank you very much. So you're off the hook.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Hey. We now move to a review of the Lakewood 2044 growth targets. And for this, we have Planning Manager Tiffany Spear.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tiffany Spear here from Community and Economic Development. I'm going to share my screen. So as the mayor just mentioned, this is related to the population and employment target process that happens periodically, starting with the state and with the Puget Sound Regional Council, and eventually coming down to the Pierce County itself and the cities within it to decide the population and employment targets to assign to each jurisdiction, and then for them to work on that for the next number of years. In this case, we're talking about 2044 as the new employment and population target horizon. So the Puget Sound Regional Council last year adopted Vision 2050, which includes multi-county planning policies and also what's called the Regional Growth Strategy. So for all 4 counties covered by PSRC, King, Pierce, Snohomish, and Kitsap, there are targeted number of people and jobs to various levels or sizes of cities. In this case, City of Lakewood is considered a core city. There's 16 of those total in all 4 of the counties put together. And of those 16, the amount intended by Vision 2050 to come to Pierce County is 85,000 people and 44,000 jobs. So along with Lakewood, the other core cities within Pierce County are University Place, Puyallup, and then Auburn, and the parts that come down from King County and come into Pierce County. So all 4 of those cities, again, are intended, or I should say are expected to absorb some portion of the 85,000 people and 44,000 jobs. Pierce County is in charge of shepherding this process through, and ultimately the Pierce County Council takes action to adopt an ordinance that sets population and employment targets. Last year, Pierce County hired AHBL as a consultant, which in turn developed 2 initial population targets for Lakewood. And the target horizon is 2044 for this. The 2 potential numbers were 88,758 and 80,488. And there were 2 different theories behind those numbers, which is why they ended up different. The city of Lakewood itself responded to those 2 by looking at its own historical growth trends and also the limits on land availability and densification possibility, and responded back with an initial request that the 2044 population target for Lakewood be set at 68,000. Once we got the results out of the 2020 census, though, the landscape changed a little bit. Instead of an estimated population of about 60,000 for Lakewood in the year 2020, it was shown through the census that it was higher than that at 63,612. So what was then done is taking a look at the number of people per year since the year 2000, and then moving to 2020, how many per year came in? You see 545 people per year in that time frame. We took that as a starting point and we said, okay, if that is the annual growth rate that we're going to continue to see in the city of Lakewood, and we've moved that forward from the year 2021 to 2024, then what we're going to be seeing is a proposed population of 76,692. So this is based on both the number from the census and then the real life 545 person per year average from the years 2010 through 2020 in the city of Lakewood. That's where this 76,692 came from. If we were to take a look at the growth and density that are planned for within the downtown subarea and the Lakewood Station subarea, you would see it was planned for at kind of the mid-level of density that is possible within the zones within those subareas. If you were to go and say, rather than that mid-level build out, we're going to see the maximum available density build out, you would end up with 806 additional housing units in downtown and almost 495 in the Lakewood Station district. These 2 numbers added together are this 1,298. If you go back to the amount that's targeted for the city of Lakewood under 76,692 total, these 2 numbers together brings you very close to the 2044 target. If an additional 11 housing units per year happen in other parts of the city, the 76,692 would be met. One note here is that Pierce County has responded back after seeing the census number with a number that's about 3,500 higher than what the city has requested. So at this point, Pierce County is talking about 80,274 as the 2044 target. What then is the outcome? What is the next step? If Lakewood says, we're going to assume a higher densification within the 2 sub areas as they build out, which is a not unreasonable assumption given the much faster than expected interest in redeveloping, particularly the Lakewood Station district. We may well see these numbers be hit even without significant growth in other parts of the city. Then you may see the city hit either 76,692 or somewhere up to and including 80,274 by the year 2044. This would be compliance, if you will, by the city of Lakewood to what Pierce County will in the near future be adopting as the new updated population and employment ordinance. However, there's still this total number of people and jobs that were assigned back with the multi-county planning policies in Vision 2050. What will happen at that point is that Auburn, Lakewood, Puyallup, and University Place will all be involved in discussions at the Puget Sound Regional Council level regarding the amount of growth that they're planning for. Given how this number of 76,692 was arrived at and the math behind it, we're feeling pretty confident that this is justifiable. And in fact, it is also reasonable that Lakewood could hit this 80,000 number given the 2 sub areas and how they will be densifying in the relatively near future. So just understanding that there will be some questions and discussions about how all 4 core cities in Pierce County are planning for their total number. This is putting Lakewood in a pretty good position with both the Pierce County Regional Council and then ultimately Puget Sound Regional Council. So with that, I am happy to answer questions, but the next steps will be the Pierce County Regional Council will start to discuss this either in December or perhaps early 2022.
Thank you. Mr. Whalen.
Tiffany, a quick question on the math. What was it, 545, kind of a lockstep as opposed to real linear progression, because it doesn't really account for potential bursts of the 545, and that kind of thing rolling forward. So, I'm not going to argue the mathematical precision on it, but my question is, what's the downside to us looking at the 80,000 figure as opposed to the 76,000 figure? It's a minor, modest increase of 3,600 or whatever the heck it is. So what's the downside to that? Because your Lakewood Station sub-area plan and your Central Business District sub-area plan don't account for the potential increase in housing units in the Lakewood Landing project, which could be another, pick a number, right?
Mhm.
So what's our downside for not working with the number that the county thinks is appropriate at 80,254, whatever it is?
I don't think there is a downside, and Councilmember Whalen, I'm actually not suggesting that the city stick with the 76. I'm suggesting that the city say we can reach this 80,000 number given what we could see as growth within the sub areas in particular. So what that does is set us up to be in agreement with the county as it takes this forward. Yeah.
We're not hanging our hat on 76,
No.
not a body more, right?
No.
Okay,
No.
good. Great.
Mr. Bulkey.
Thank you, Mayor. So just to dovetail with that last point by Deputy Mayor Whalen. So our position really going into this is 80,000 is okay.
Correct.
And then, but are we anticipating that the county will stick with the 80,000 figure or that they might go higher?
At this point, at the staff level, the Growth Management Coordinating Committee has discussed this a number of times, and we are hearing there that Pierce County is agreeable to the 80,000 number. I am not sure once it gets on to elected leadership at the PCRC or Pierce County Council level if that changes.
Okay. So we're in good shape going into this because we're not in this wide area of disagreement that I think were previously.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
As long as you don't come in there, Paul, with an amendment and I want 95,000 or something like
95.
that.
No.
Yeah, I concur with that. Rather than spending time and effort arguing about a marginal amount, to roll on the 80 plus, and if communities push back and say we should get a bigger share, we can just generically bring up the ACUS and say, hey, we've got less buildable land than we used to have, and we're taking the share that was recommended. What do you want us to do? So
exactly.
So anything further for Ms. Spear?
No, that was it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, well, that's easy.
Thank
You
you.
usually bring us more complex questions.
No, this was a simple one. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yep.
So now we'll move to reports by the city manager, Mr. Caulfield.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. Actually, the complexity of that particular issue had been addressed in a number of meetings before this body previously. So this next step is hopefully going to wrap up and resolve this issue with Pierce County staff as well as the Pierce County Council. So just want to commend Ms. Spear there for nice work there. Just a few updates. We had the community cleanup, the fall community cleanup this past weekend. I think the weather got in the way of a little bit of it. Over the two-day period, there was 252 vehicles that came through. That's a relatively low number compared to previous events. For example, going all the way back to the fall of 2017, which was the first one, there was 787 vehicles that came through. But typically over a weekend, we'll average about 500 to 600 through the weekend. But in any event, the folks that did show up and come out were greatly appreciative of the opportunity to be able to take advantage of the service. We're looking to finalize a joint meeting between your state legislators. And first of all, Mayor and Council, thank you for getting back with the city clerk on your availability. And at this point in time, Wednesday, December 8th is the date that all 7 of you have identified that you're available. So we're in the process right now of reaching out to the delegation to check and confirm their availability. So I would just ask that you hold that on your calendar. The backup, where 6 of the 7 of you identified, would be the previous week, which would be Wednesday, December 1st. So probably more to follow on that. I wanted to give you a quick update on Tactical Tailor. This is something that we would like to bring back for a little bit more detailed review as part of your next study session on November 22nd. As you know, the city of Lakewood, along with South Sound Military and Communities Partnership, has been working with Tactical Tailor to secure this property. Right now, the critical path item that we are waiting on is for the Army Environmental Command to provide what's called a notice to proceed that will then allow them to release $5.1 million in Air Force monies to the city to be able to acquire Tactical Tailor, which also includes relocation costs. Tactical Tailor agreed and actually signed the purchase and sale agreement over a year ago. The total cost that they agreed to is approaching $7.4 million. The funding sources would be that $5.1 million from the Air Force, followed with $1.258 million from the state capital budget that we've been able to secure through our state legislators, $530,000 from Pierce County, and then the remaining $553,000 or so would actually be bridge financing provided by the city of Lakewood that then would be repaid over about a 3-year period with the leaseback revenue from Tactical Tailor once the city acquires ownership of the building and the property. So we would like to give you an update on that. And what we're hoping is that notice to proceed is going to come in the early part of December. And so we've also tentatively planned for the city council to take action on the purchase and sale agreement as part of your December 6th meeting. Also, the purchase and sale agreement also includes the leaseback agreement as well. And again, Tactical Tailor has already agreed to this, and really all we're waiting on is the federal funding source to be able to move forward on that. Your planning commission has been getting very actively involved on the next steps as it relates to the climate change. And long story short, at their meeting last week, they went through a prioritization process where they narrowed down the 89 action items that this body, actually based on a recommendation from the Planning Commission, had included as part of the climate change action plan. And they've narrowed it down to 20, and they still have some more work to do. But I do want to pass on to you that your Planning Commission is really doing some excellent work there. And I also want to commend Mr. Buer, our Assistant City Manager for Community and Economic Development, for facilitating that. Also along those lines, you might remember earlier this year, I reported that Mr. Buer had reached out to the University of Washington, their Evans School of Management, for a student team to work on the city, with the city, to develop a climate change risk and resilience public perception study. And surprisingly, a whole bunch of students have an interest in doing this. And so we have been selected for the student team to help us out with that. And that's work that will get underway in 2022. Also, the next update relates to the recent appropriation that this body provided in support of the Arpa monies that you provided in support of the BIPOC and the Business Navigator program that the Pierce County is taking the lead on. And really the program has got off to a very strong start. Matter of fact, as it relates to Lakewood, 9 of the 72 businesses in the first round of the BIPOC Accelerator program are from Lakewood. So we're very, very pleased there. The Korean Women's Association, based here in Lakewood, also kicked off their first meeting, and they are the ones who are serving those businesses that require instruction in other languages. So that is moving forward. In the end, this Navigator program has a goal of serving 3,500 businesses across the county. So again, just wanted to report that as quickly as this body appropriated those monies, this program is now moving forward, and our thanks to Pierce County for their leadership there. Back in 2015 and then in 2017, the city initiated a community satisfaction survey within our community with a company called National Research Center. And that's in partnership with some other agencies that a number of us, belong and associate with. Unfortunately, we did not do one in 2019. We had some, if you remember, we had some budgetary issues there. There was a kind of a number of smaller things that we weren't able to fund. However, we have initiated and are getting underway to do that community satisfaction survey in the early part of 2022. So our new assistant to the city manager, policy analyst, Michael Vargas, is going to be taking the lead on that. And so I just wanted to give you a heads up that we are moving forward with that. And we hope to have the results of that probably around the March or April timeframe. Also, this particular survey is actually going to be in two tranches. The first tranche will be the traditional, what's the term? Statistically accurate survey based on a number of parameters within the community. However, we are also then going to make the survey available on our website and via other forums just for folks to take advantage of and provide feedback. And then we'll collate both of the results of that, though we will not combine them. We will keep them separate. As it relates to upcoming events, let's see, tomorrow morning, again, if you haven't signed up, I think there might still be an opportunity. United Way of Pierce County is hosting their fifth annual From Poverty to Possibilities event. It's a virtual event. It's from 8 to noon. Also, later on in the week on Wednesday morning from 9 to 11, the City of Lakewood, our Economic Development Department, is facilitating our business forum. And again, that's a virtual event. And I know our own Mayor, Don Anderson, will be sitting on a panel on that. And then next week on November 17th, which is also on a Wednesday from 7:30 to 9:30 a.m., South Sound Military and Communities Partnership will be hosting their the Elected Officials Council, of which you are all a part of. It was originally thought to be a virtual event. However, the powers that be decided that they were going to hold an in-person event, though masks and social distancing will be required. And it will be down at Eagles Pride Golf Course, which is part of JBLM, though has direct public access. And if you have an interest in signing up for that, let us know, and we'll be more than happy to help facilitate that for you. So with that, Mayor and Council, that's my report. Thank you.
Any questions from council? Well, seeing none, then we'll go to Council Mr. Brandstetter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Caulfield, regarding the tactical tailor timeline, if we don't get the notice to proceed, to be able to act on this and for the council to take the necessary actions it needs to take by early December, is there some real value to getting that done in December? Because traditionally we've always canceled our second business meeting in December. But would that be something that if it came in, but too late to do for our first meeting on December 6th or so, would that be something that would be advisable to do a special meeting to get moved forward by the end of the year?
Councilmember Branstetter, the most recent update that we have from Army Environmental Command is that they're looking at providing that notice of proceed so that we can close on the tactical tail of purchase by December 12th. And so that's why the December 6th council meeting is the date that I'm hoping to bring back that purchase and sale agreement. However, if it's going to be after December 20th, but we have a firm date, then yes, bringing it forward for council consideration as part of your December 20th meeting would certainly be an option.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions from Mr. Caulfield? And we'll stay with Mr. Branstetter for council comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did attend an AWC virtual event on municipal courts this past week. And I know our city attorney and our municipal court judge were in on that as well. The one thing that came out of that discussion, where there were some discussions around the Burke decision regarding the rollback of certain controlled substances professions to the misdemeanor categories, that apparently when the legislature did that, they also in legislation provided some funding that was supposed to go to counties and cities, municipalities that had municipal courts. And that when it got to the governor's desk, that he chose to veto the part of that legislation that provided the funding to cities, only providing it to counties to compensate for costs relating to that. And it occurred to me that before we talk with our legislators, I didn't know, one, whether the county, having then gotten funding, had a plan to help distribute it to local municipal courts like ours when there were some identifiable costs, or whether it is something that we would want to ask our legislators to look at to see whether they could reinstate that. There wasn't any time during this meeting to there, so I have no idea what our municipal court judge feels or feels that she's being asked to do something without funding, but something to look at. In any event, that's I am looking forward to Veterans Day, and the number of things that will be going on that I'll get a chance to participate in. And with that, I'm good for the evening.
Thank you. Ms. Moss.
Mr. Mayor.
You good? Mr. Bulkey.
I'm good. I do just want to comment, with all the rain we've had, and considering it was fall and there were a lot of leaves on the ground, I think our public works folks need to be commended, because I didn't run into too many cases of really bad standing water, considering the amount of rain and all the leaves. So I think they did a very nice job. And I think the improvements that we've made on a lot of our streets have really paid off in that regard. We're not going through 6 inches or a foot of water in many cases. So I kudos to the Public Works Department for their good work. And I noticed that there are already sweepers out today. So good on everybody. Thanks.
Ms. Farmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. I just wanted to note that I'm really pleased that the National Research Center survey is back on for this year, for the 2-year cycle. This is something that in my book is a must-have and not a nice-to-have. And so I will advocate for future councils that if we run into budget trouble, this is not something that we want to cut. This company has been around for quite a long time, and they do statistically valid research across the country, allowing us to benchmark our answers against other cities' answers. And it is amazing. I've been involved with cities and organizations who've used their survey services before, and it's remarkable how well they can correlate and determine what our citizens are interested in, and how that will play out down the road in funding decisions and support for additional city services, for example. So this is a planning tool, it's a strategy tool, and I'm very excited that we're going to be embarking on that. So thank you.
Mr. Whalen.
Well, thank you. Just a couple of comments on the community cleanup. I wasn't able to attend it, but I heard great things about it. There was a lot of commentary on social media, and unlike the one we had earlier this year, this one apparently was really well done. So, and not that the first one wasn't well done, but this one was done even better. I think the coordination people were very pleased with, and the lines moved along expeditiously. So thanks to everyone who was involved in that. I attended the Pierce Transit Board meeting tonight, and they continue to move forward on their BRT project. We approved some additional planning funding that apparently is critical in getting them to the next 60% stage, which allows them to get the requisite approvals to make sure they're in line for a $75 million federal grant. And without the grant, the project won't go forward. So they're, all hands on deck trying to make that work, because we want that to be successful so that we can have some impetus to further the efforts for BRT2, which would come to Lakewood, down the road. So that's a good thing. On the Veterans Day celebration, looking forward to that. I just want to pass along, Lakewood Rotary had a very nice Veterans Day celebration on this past Friday. And our city manager introduced the former 2-2 Striker Brigade Colonel Johnny Chung as the speaker. He was excellent, I have to say. It was just a very heartfelt presentation about not only his background and how he kind of rose from a modest life and childhood to the wonderful success and leader he's been as a soldier, bringing along other soldiers as a good mentor. But it prompted me to remind all of us that we should do what we can with Mr. Caulfield to create another opportunity for our community connector, the 2-2, for a social leadership gathering sometime as best we can, maybe not in the fall, but maybe in the early spring, if we can get together and find the requisite location to do it, if not the Thornwood Castle. But I think it's a really good thing to continue that relationship. So. And on a personal note, Mr. Mayor, my lovely 16-year-old daughter was part of a great cross-country team at the state meet in Pasco this week. So I was looking for water features as best I could, to kind of bring back more information for you. But they did bring back a 4th place state trophy. So I think we'll take that.
I've been there, and it's a lot of fun. The only negative I recall is the year they had tumbleweeds coming across the course, and actually had people stationed to help the kids pull them off their legs. It's usually fairly dry. Well, thank you.
Day. Yeah.
I spent Sunday through Wednesday going to, from, and staying in San Antonio at the Association of Defense Communities Installation Innovations Forum and all this. Although I went with my county hat on, it's kind of fungible. I did, while I was there, was interviewed for a potential board position on the national board. One thing I brought back of pertinence to the city is with respect to the DSIP program. So good news is it's now institutionalized. It doesn't look like it's going anywhere. There doesn't seem to be any movement to take it out of the Defense Department budget. There may actually be some more money this year. There won't be less than last year is the feeling. But conference may bump it up a little. It is probably through a couple of amendments edging to being a little bit more road friendly. It moved after the first year where you had to be a library or a daycare center or swimming pool or something to get money, which was kind of got off the track. Last year was more truly infrastructure projects, although there weren't road projects. But they were highly competitive, and I'll explain one to you. And I don't feel as bad about losing when I hear ones like this. So the Navy has facilities where the Seabees were down at Point Magoo and Point Hueneme in California. They're in the same massive water district for potable water. Because of changing groundwater levels and the invasion of magnesium and some other heavy metal, the water was going to be non-potable in the near future. It was a massive project to redo this water district for a very small water district because it's kind of rural around there. And the majority of the funding for that program came from the state, slightly more than 50%. A quarter of it came from ratepayers in the water district, and a quarter of it came from a DSIP grant. And it provided continuity of potable water to two bases where they didn't have their own water systems. So you can see a direct relationship to the infrastructure of the base, and that's a good sign, I think, because if we compete on merit and it's truly an infrastructure program, I think our turn will come in the future. Is there anything further to come before the council? Well, if not, then we're adjourned.